The massive space station floated in the darkness between stars. It was called Nexus Prime, and it was bigger than most moons. Inside its crystal walls, strange creatures from across the galaxy gathered for an important meeting. Kang Daiho walked slowly through the long hallway. His black shoes made soft sounds on the smooth floor. He carried a simple leather bag and wore a dark suit that looked very plain compared to the bright colors and strange clothes of the aliens around him. The other beings stared at him as he passed. Some had blue skin that glowed softly. Others looked like giant insects with sharp claws. A few floated in the air without touching the ground. All of them whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or wind. Daiho did not seem worried by their stares. He had practiced for this moment for many years. Earth had finally built ships that could travel between stars, and now they wanted to join the Galactic Council. But first, they had to ask permission. The meeting room was huge and made of clear crystal. Hundreds of alien leaders sat in floating chairs that moved up and down in the air. At the center of the room stood a tall creature made of what looked like living glass. This was High Arbiter Velthar, the leader of the council. "We are here today," Velthar said in a voice that rang like bells, "to consider the request of a new species. They call themselves humans." Many of the aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Some clicked their claws or tentacles together. Others flashed colors across their skin like living rainbows. "These humans," Velthar continued, "want us to recognize their claim to one small star system at the edge of our galaxy. They have only recently learned to travel between planets." More laughter echoed through the crystal room. Daiho stood quietly and waited for his turn to speak. He had expected this reaction. Humans were new to space travel, and their technology looked simple compared to what the galactic races had built. "The human representative may speak," Velthar announced. Daiho stepped forward and bowed politely. "Thank you, High Arbiter. My name is Kang Daiho, and I speak for all humans on Earth and our colonies." Several aliens looked surprised. They had not known that humans had colonies. "We come to you in peace," Daiho continued. "We do not seek to take anything from other races. We only want recognition as equals and the right to exist in our own space without interference." A large creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird stood up. This was Counselor Thex Mora, leader of a warrior race called the Korthul Equals. Thex Mora hissed. "Your ships burn chemical fuel like children's toys. Your weapons are made of metal and explosive powder. You have barely left your homeworld, and you dare to call yourselves our equals?" Many aliens nodded their heads or made sounds of agreement. Some had been watching humans for decades. They knew about human wars, human pollution, and human mistakes. To them, humans looked like primitive children playing with dangerous toys. Daiho smiled calmly. "We understand that our technology may appear simple to races that have traveled the stars for thousands of years, but we hope that wisdom comes from more than just advanced technology. We believe that all intelligent species deserve respect, regardless of how they choose to build their tools." "Choose?" another alien called out. This one looked like a living tree with glowing fruit hanging from its branches. "You speak as if your primitive technology is a choice rather than a limitation." "Perhaps," Daiho replied softly. "The line between choice and limitation is not as clear as it seems." This answer made several of the telepathic races shift uncomfortably in their floating chairs. They had been trying to read the human's thoughts since he entered the room, but something about his mind felt strange. It was like trying to look through frosted glass. They could see shapes and shadows, but nothing clear. High Arbiter Velthar raised one crystal hand for silence. "The human request will be considered. This session is ended." As the aliens began to leave, many stayed behind to talk in small groups. Daiho heard fragments of their conversations as he walked toward the exit. "They could be useful," one alien said to another. "Primitive races often make good workers." "Their world has many resources," whispered a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish, "and they breed quickly." "We should establish trading posts in their system," suggested another. "Buy their raw materials cheaply and sell them finished goods at high prices." Daiho continued walking, his face showing no emotion. But inside his jacket pocket, a small device recorded every word. The device looked like a simple communication radio, but it was actually much more advanced than anything the galactic races had seen. Back on Earth, teams of analysts listened to these recordings. They studied every word, every tone, every hint of what the galactic races really thought about humans. This information would be very important in the days to come. 3 days later, Daiho met privately with several alien leaders. They came to his small quarters on Nexus Prime with offers and suggestions. "Your people need guidance," said Ambassador Quexlim, a creature with too many eyes and arms. "We could help you develop better technology. All we would ask in return is access to your planet's oceans. We need the water for our colonies." "How generous," Daiho replied. "But humans are quite fond of our oceans. Perhaps we could discuss other arrangements." More aliens came with more offers. Some wanted to build factories on human worlds. Others offered to buy human art and culture. A few suggested that young humans could study at galactic universities, though they would need to work as servants to pay for their education. To each offer, Daiho gave polite but non-committal answers. He thanked them for their interest. He promised to discuss their proposals with Earth's leaders. He asked thoughtful questions that made the aliens think he was impressed by their generosity. But late at night, alone in his quarters, Daiho sent coded messages back to Earth. The messages looked like simple letters to his family, but hidden within them was detailed intelligence about every alien species he had met. He described their technology, their weaknesses, their fears, and their desires. He noted which races could be trusted and which ones were already planning to exploit humanity. He identified potential allies and certain enemies. Most importantly, he confirmed what human scouts had already discovered during decades of secret observation. The galactic races were not as advanced as they pretended to be. Their technology had grown slowly over thousands of years, but they had become comfortable and lazy. They rarely innovated or took risks. They also had many problems. They tried to hide. Some races were dying out because they had poisoned their homeworlds. Others faced rebellions from species they had conquered. Many were fighting secret wars over resources and territory. The Galactic Council appeared strong and united, but it was actually full of cracks and weaknesses. And none of them suspected that humans had been watching and learning for much longer than anyone realized. As Daiho prepared for sleep, he looked out the window of his quarters at the stars. Somewhere out there, hidden in the darkness, human ships moved silently through space. They carried no bright lights or energy signatures that alien sensors could detect. They looked like simple metal objects drifting with the solar wind. But inside those ships, human crews watched and waited. They monitored alien communications, mapped alien territories, and prepared for whatever might come next. The aliens thought humans were primitive newcomers begging for acceptance. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this moment for over 50 years, and they certainly didn't suspect that the simple leather bag Daiho carried contained information that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Tomorrow, Daiho would attend another council meeting. He would continue to play the role of a humble diplomat from a primitive world. But tonight, he smiled as he watched the stars. The game was just beginning, and humanity was already several moves ahead. 3 months had passed since Kang Daiho first spoke to the Galactic Council. The alien leaders were still discussing humanity's request, but some of them had grown impatient. They wanted to know more about these humans before making any decisions. Admiral Kesevar was one of the impatient ones. He commanded the war fleets of the Korthol Empire, a race of large reptilian creatures who believed that strength was the only thing that mattered in the universe. Kesevar had scales as dark as space and eyes that glowed red when he was angry. "We waste time with talk," Kesevar told his officers as they gathered in the command room of his flagship. "These humans claim to control an entire star system. But how can we know if this is true? We must test their strength." His officers nodded their agreement. They were all Korthol warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds for their empire. To them, humans seemed like easy prey. "We will send a research fleet to their system," Kesevar announced. "We will tell the council we are conducting scientific studies. But really, we will see how these humans defend their territory." 2 weeks. Later, 12 Korthul warships appeared at the edge of the Sol system. Each ship was as long as a human city and armed with weapons that could turn planets into dust. Their hulls were covered in thick armor that could resist the heat of stars. Their shields could stop almost any weapon known to galactic science. The fleet moved slowly toward the inner planets where humans lived. Admiral Kesevar expected to find a few small orbital stations and maybe some primitive spacecraft. He was already planning how to demand tribute from the human government. Instead, his sensors detected something unexpected. A single human ship was moving to intercept his fleet. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving a message from the human vessel." "Put it on the main screen," Kesevar ordered. The image of a human woman appeared before them. She wore a simple blue uniform with no decorations or medals. Her name was Commander Lee Soo-jin, and she looked very calm despite facing 12 warships with only one. "Admiral Kesevar," Soo-jin said politely. "This is Commander Soo-jin of the Earth Defense Ship Indomitable. You are entering human space without permission. Please change course immediately." Kesevar and his officers burst into laughter. The human ship looked tiny compared to their massive warships. It appeared to be made of simple steel and had only basic energy shields. Its weapons looked like nothing more than metal tubes pointing in different directions. "Little human," Kesevar replied with amusement. "You should return to your planet before you get hurt. We are here on official galactic business." Soo-jin's expression did not change. "Admiral, I'm asking you politely to leave our space. This is your final warning." "Warning?" Kesevar roared with laughter. "You dare to threaten the fleet of the Korthul Empire? Your pathetic ship would not even scratch our paint." Soo-jin sighed softly. "Very well, all stations, weapons free. Engage the enemy." What happened next shocked everyone who witnessed it. The human ship did not fire energy beams or launch explosive missiles like normal warships. Instead, it accelerated to incredible speed and began shooting what looked like simple metal bars. But these were not simple metal bars. They were dense tungsten rods accelerated to enormous speeds by magnetic fields. When they hit the Korthul ships, they punched through armor and shields like bullets through paper. The Korthul had spent thousands of years perfecting their defenses against energy weapons. Their shields could absorb laser blasts and deflect plasma bolts. Their armor could resist temperatures hot enough to melt most metals. But they had never encountered pure kinetic weapons moving at such incredible speeds. "Impossible," Kesevar shouted as his flagship shook from multiple impacts. "How can primitive weapons penetrate our shields?" His tactical officer was frantically working at his control panel. "Admiral, their projectiles are moving at 12% of light speed. Our shields cannot stop solid matter at those velocities." The first Korthul warship exploded as tungsten rods tore through its reactor core. The second ship lost its main engines and began spinning out of control. The third ship's weapon systems went offline when projectiles severed its power cables. "Commander," Soo-jin moved her ship with precision and skill that amazed even her enemies. She avoided their return fire easily while continuing to launch devastating attacks. Her weapons never missed, and each shot was aimed at exactly the right spot to cause maximum damage. "She's not fighting like a primitive," one of Kesevar's officers observed. "Her tactics are perfect. It's like she knows exactly where to hit us." The officer was more right than he knew. Humans had been studying Korthul ship designs for decades. They knew every weakness, every vulnerable point, every system that could be disabled with a precise strike. Within 17 minutes, 11 Korthul warships were either destroyed or too damaged to fight. Only Admiral Kesevar's flagship remained operational, and it was badly hurt. "Admiral," his communications officer said with fear in his voice, "the human is sending another message." Soo-jin appeared on their screen again. She still looked completely calm, as if the battle had been nothing more than a training exercise. "Admiral Kesevar," she said, "you are welcome to return home now. Next time, please remember that civilized people ask permission before entering someone else's house." Kesevar stared at her in shock. His mighty fleet had been destroyed by a single human ship. His reputation as a fearsome warrior was ruined. But what frightened him most was how easily the humans had won. You fight without honor," he managed to say. You use cowards' weapons. Sujin raised one eyebrow. Admiral, you brought 12 warships to attack one. Who exactly is the coward in this situation? With his ship damaged and his fleet destroyed, Kesavar had no choice but to retreat. As his flagship limped away from the Sol system, he broadcast a message on all galactic frequencies. The humans are not what they seem, he warned. Their weapons are strange but powerful. Their tactics are perfect. Do not underestimate them as I did. The recording of Kesavar's defeat spread across the galaxy within hours. Military analysts from dozens of species studied the footage, trying to understand how such simple weapons could be so effective. Some claimed the humans had been lucky. Others suggested the Korthul had made tactical errors. But the wisest analysts began to realize something disturbing. The humans had not been trying to show off their power. They had been holding back. The human ship could have destroyed all 12 Korthul vessels in minutes instead of 17. Commander Sujin could have killed thousands of alien warriors instead of simply disabling their ships. The humans had used exactly enough force to win the battle while minimizing casualties. This restraint was more frightening than any display of raw power. It suggested that humanity possessed much greater military capabilities than they had revealed. It implied that the Sol system was not defended by a few primitive ships, but by forces that could challenge the entire galactic fleet. Within days of the battle, alien intelligence services began reassessing everything they thought they knew about humans. Long-range sensors were pointed toward human space, searching for signs of hidden military installations. What they found was deeply troubling. The Sol system contained industrial operations on a scale that dwarfed most galactic civilizations. Massive structures orbited every planet and moon. Asteroid belts had been converted into automated factories. The humans were building something big, and they had been working on it for a very long time. High Arbiter Velthar called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. For the first time in his long life, the crystal being felt something approaching: fear. The human question, he announced to the assembled aliens, has become more urgent than we anticipated. Many council members who had dismissed humans as primitive newcomers now looked worried. If a single human ship could destroy a Korthul battle fleet, what could an entire human navy accomplish? But it was too late for fear. The humans had passed their test with flying colors. They had proven they could defend themselves against any threat the galaxy might send, and somewhere in the darkness of space, more human ships moved silently toward their destinations, carrying weapons and technologies that would soon change the balance of power throughout the galaxy forever. After Admiral Kesavar's defeat, alien intelligence agencies worked day and night to learn the truth about humanity. They sent spy satellites toward human space and hired information brokers to gather any data they could find. What they discovered made their worst fears seem small. Dr. Park Haiwan arrived at Nexus Prime 2 weeks after the battle. She was a cheerful woman with a bright smile who claimed to be a scientist interested in alien biology. The alien researchers welcomed her warmly because she seemed so friendly and harmless. "I'm so excited to learn about different forms of life," Park told them during her first meeting with the Galactic Research Council. "On Earth, we only have one type of intelligent species. Here, I can study dozens of different evolutionary paths." The Iki, alien scientists were happy to share their knowledge. They showed Park their laboratories and explained how their different body systems worked. They discussed their homeworlds, their diets, and their reproduction cycles. Park listened to everything with obvious fascination and took careful notes. What the aliens did not know was that Park was actually Earth's leading expert in biological warfare. Every friendly question she asked was designed to identify weaknesses that human weapons could exploit. Every sample she examined under their microscopes was analyzed for genetic vulnerabilities. When a Velthari scientist proudly showed her how their crystal bodies conducted energy, Park asked innocent questions about what might happen if that energy was disrupted. When insectoid researchers demonstrated their hive mind communication, Park wondered aloud about interference patterns that could break their mental connections. The alien scientists answered all her questions without suspicion. They thought she was just curious about how their bodies worked. They had no idea she was cataloging ways to kill them. Meanwhile, deep in space, Other humans were making disturbing discoveries. General Kim Tae-sung commanded a training exercise near the outer edge of human territory. His fleet practiced maneuvers with weapons that had never been tested in combat. The exercise involved targeting an uninhabited asteroid belt with experimental energy weapons. When the weapons fired, they created explosions visible from several star systems away. The energy signatures were detected by galactic monitoring stations, causing panic among alien military leaders. "Sir," reported a Thorian intelligence officer to his commander, "our sensors detected weapon discharges equivalent to antimatter bombs in human space." The commander studied the data with growing alarm. "How many weapons were fired to create this energy signature?" "According to our analysis, only 3, sir." The room fell silent. If humans could create such massive explosions with just 3 weapons, what could they do with hundreds or thousands? Similar reports came from other monitoring stations. Humans were testing weapons that seemed designed to sterilize entire planets. They were practicing fleet movements that suggested preparation for large-scale warfare. Most disturbing of all, they were doing it openly, as if they wanted the galaxy to know about their capabilities. The breakthrough came when Quexlim, the multi-armed alien who had tried to make deals with humanity, successfully hacked into human communication networks. He was considered the best computer specialist in galactic intelligence, and he was proud of his ability to break any security system. What he found in the human networks destroyed every assumption the galaxy had made about Earth's children. Humans were not a single-planet species struggling to reach other worlds. They had colonies in 17 different star systems. They were not newcomers to space travel, but had been secretly exploring the galaxy for over 50 years. They were not primitive beings with simple technology, but possessed industrial capabilities that surpassed most galactic civilizations. Worse yet, every major alien species had been under human observation for decades. Human agents had infiltrated alien societies, studied their cultures, and mapped their military installations. The aliens had been watching humans, but humans had been watching them right back. Quexlim's hands shook as he downloaded file after file of intelligence data. Humans knew about secret Korthul military bases that even the Galactic Council had never heard of. They had detailed maps of Thorian industrial complexes. They possessed complete genetic profiles of every major species in the galaxy. The files revealed that humans had been preparing for this moment since their first contact with galactic civilization. Every diplomatic meeting had been an opportunity to gather intelligence. Every cultural exchange had been a chance to study alien weaknesses. Every peaceful gesture had hidden careful observation of alien reactions. Most terrifying of all were the strategic analysis reports. Human military planners had studied every war fought in galactic history. They had identified patterns in alien tactics, weaknesses in alien technology, and failures in alien leadership. They knew exactly how to defeat every species in the galaxy. Quexlim tried to copy all the data, but the human security systems detected his intrusion. Instead of blocking his access, they allowed him to download everything while secretly tracking his identity and location. The humans wanted the aliens to know what they had discovered. Within hours, Quexlim's intelligence reached every major government in the galaxy. The reaction was immediate and widespread panic. "They've been watching us for 50 years, High Arbiter Velthar announced to an emergency session of the Galactic Council. "Every weakness we have, they know about. Every secret base, every hidden weapon, every private conversation, all of it has been recorded and analyzed." The alien leaders looked around the crystal chamber with new fear. How many of their private meetings had human agents observed? How many of their secret plans were already known to humanity? "But there's worse news," Velthar continued. "Long-range sensors have detected new human installations throughout the galaxy. They're not just in human space anymore." The reports were indeed alarming. Human structures had appeared near major shipping lanes, industrial worlds, and military installations across dozens of systems. Each installation looked small and lightly defended, but they were positioned with obvious strategic value. Counselor Thex Mora, still nursing wounds from his fleet's defeat, studied the strategic positions with a warrior's eye. These are not research stations, he realized. They're forward military bases. The humans are surrounding us. The implications were staggering. While alien leaders had debated whether to accept humanity into galactic society, humans had been quietly establishing a military presence throughout known space. They hadn't asked for permission or negotiated territorial agreements. They had simply moved into position and dared anyone to stop them. How did they do this without us noticing? Demanded Ambassador Zixtal, a floating creature that commanded the galactic patrol fleets. The answer came from their own intelligence reports. Human ships were designed to be nearly invisible to alien sensors. They used no energy signatures that alien technology could easily detect. They moved silently through space, looking like natural objects or space debris. More disturbing was the realization that humans had been using alien transportation networks. They had purchased passage on alien merchant ships, traveled through alien jump gates, and even worked as crew members on alien vessels. All the while, they were mapping routes, studying defenses, and positioning themselves for strategic advantage. Dr. Park Hai-wan sent a message to Earth that was intercepted by alien intelligence. Research complete, the message read. Full biological profiles obtained. Recommend proceeding to Phase 2. Phase 2? The aliens had no idea what Phase 1 had been, and they were terrified to discover what Phase 2 might involve. General. Kim Tae-sung's training exercises became more frequent and more visible. Human fleets practiced maneuvers that looked like preparation for galactic conquest. They tested weapons that could destroy space stations. They conducted boarding exercises on mock-ups of alien ship designs. The message was clear. Humanity was preparing for war on a galactic scale. High Arbiter Velthar called for calm, but panic was spreading through alien societies. Some species began evacuating their outer colonies. Others started building new defense systems. A few even considered surrendering before the fighting started. We must decide quickly, Velthar told his advisors. Do we accept humanity's original request and hope they remain peaceful? Or do we act first to prevent them from becoming too powerful? But even as he spoke, they all knew it was probably too late for either choice. The humans had been preparing for this moment for 50 years. They had positioned themselves strategically throughout the galaxy. They had studied every alien weakness and planned for every possible response. The galaxy had tested humanity and found them far stronger than expected. Now humanity was preparing to test the galaxy in return. And from what alien intelligence could determine, it was going to be a test that most species would fail. The Galactic Council held its most important meeting in 1,000 years. Representatives from every major species crowded into the crystal chamber, their voices creating a symphony of fear and anger. The revelation of humanity's true capabilities had shattered their comfortable worldview. Ambassador Yoon Jae-min walked calmly through the chaos. He was Kang Dae-ho's chief assistant, a quiet man who always carried a simple briefcase and spoke in soft tones. The alien leaders barely noticed him as he took his place at the human delegation table. High Arbiter Velthar called for order, his crystal voice ringing through the chamber. We face an unprecedented situation, he announced. The species known as humanity has revealed capabilities far beyond our initial assessments. Angry voices erupted from the assembly. Counselor Thexamora rose to his full height, his scales rippling with rage. They have deceived us from the beginning. Their diplomat spoke of peace while their agents spread throughout our territories like a disease. Other alien leaders voiced similar complaints. They felt betrayed and threatened. Some called for immediate military action against humanity. Others demanded that all human installations be removed from galactic space. Yoon Jae-min stood slowly and raised one hand. The gesture was small and polite, but somehow it commanded attention. The chamber gradually fell silent as all eyes turned to the human representative. Honorable council members, Yoon said in his gentle voice, humanity appreciates this opportunity to address your concerns. We have indeed been observing galactic civilization, just as you have been observing us. We believe this is natural behavior for any intelligent species encountering potential neighbors. Neighbors? Thexamora snarled. You speak as equals. But you are invaders who have surrounded our worlds with military installations. Yoon nodded, thoughtfully. We understand your concern about our research stations. However, we place them in neutral space according to existing galactic law. We have not violated any territory or threatened any civilian population. This was technically true, but everyone knew the human bases were positioned for maximum strategic advantage. They controlled key shipping routes and could monitor all major military movements. We did not come here today to debate the legality of our defensive preparations, Yoon continued. We came to offer a proposal that we believe will benefit all species in the galaxy. He opened his briefcase and removed a thick document. Humanity wishes to formalize our relationship with galactic civilization. We are prepared to offer technology sharing, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. Many aliens leaned forward with interest. Human technology had proven surprisingly effective against advanced galactic weapons. Access to such innovations could provide significant advantages. However, Yoon said, his voice remaining calm and pleasant, we require certain assurances regarding the conduct of galactic civilization. He distributed copies of his document to the alien leaders. As their expressions changed from interest to shock to outrage. The human proposal was not a simple trade agreement. It was a complete restructuring of galactic society, according to human moral standards. Humanity demanded an immediate end to all slavery throughout the galaxy. They insisted on universal rights for all intelligent species. They required the dismantling of operations that exploited less developed worlds. Most shocking of all, they wanted the practice of planetary harvesting to be completely banned. Planetary harvesting was how many advanced species obtained resources. They would find worlds with primitive life forms, strip away all valuable materials, and leave the planets as lifeless rocks. It was considered normal business practice throughout the galaxy. This is madness, shouted Ambassador Vextar, whose species had built their entire economy on harvesting operations. You cannot simply rewrite thousands of years of galactic law, Yoon smiled politely. We are not rewriting anything. We are simply declining to participate in a system we find morally objectionable. These are our conditions for joining galactic civilization. And if we refuse, Thexamora demanded, then we will respectfully decline membership in the Galactic Council and pursue our own path through the universe. The threat was delivered so gently that many aliens almost missed it, but the military leaders understood immediately. If humanity left the Council, they would be free to act without any legal restrictions. They could expand their territory, build more military installations, and intervene in galactic affairs whenever they chose. Captain Cho Min-ho received a coded message during the debate. He was the commander of human forces throughout the galaxy, and the message was a single word: execute. Within minutes, human installations across the galaxy activated systems that had been hidden inside their simple research stations. Massive sensor arrays extended from seemingly small buildings. Communication dishes began broadcasting on all frequencies. Energy collectors that had appeared to be scientific instruments revealed themselves as sophisticated surveillance equipment. The broadcasts that followed shocked the galactic population. Human stations began transmitting detailed evidence of crimes that galactic leaders had hidden for centuries. They showed slave markets operating on worlds that officially banned slavery. They revealed strip mining operations that had destroyed dozens of inhabited planets. They broadcast communications proving that council members knew about these activities and deliberately covered them up. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Hidden cameras showed alien officials accepting bribes to ignore illegal activities. Recorded conversations revealed plans to eliminate entire species that refused to submit to galactic authority. Financial records proved that the wealth of advanced civilizations was built on the exploitation of weaker races. Most damaging were the communications intercepts from High Arbiter Velthar himself. The recording showed him discussing plans to manage the human problem by allowing selected alien species to establish bases in human space. He had been planning to divide Earth's solar system among several alien governments as a reward for their loyalty. The revelations caused immediate chaos throughout galactic civilization. On dozens of worlds, oppressed populations rose in rebellion against their rulers. Species that had been forced into slavery began demanding freedom. Civilizations that had been strip-mined for resources called for justice. In the council chamber, alien leaders stared at their human guests with new understanding. The gentle Ambassador Yoon and his quiet assistants were not just diplomats. They were prosecutors presenting evidence at a trial. "How long have you been collecting this information?" Velthar asked, his crystal voice cracking with fear. "Since our first contact with galactic civilization," Yoon replied. "We wanted to understand the true nature of the society we were being invited to join. The human documents contained evidence of crimes committed by every major species in the galaxy. Genocide, slavery, environmental destruction, systematic oppression. The list seemed endless. Worse yet, the evidence was being broadcast to every inhabited world, causing political upheaval on a scale never before seen. Thexamora realized the trap they had fallen into. "You never intended to join our civilization as it exists. You came here to destroy it." Yoon shook his head sadly. "We came here hoping to find a society we could respect and admire. Instead, we discovered a system built on exploitation and suffering. We cannot in good conscience participate in such an arrangement." "So what do you want from us?" Velthar demanded. Yoon stood and faced the assembled alien leaders. His voice remained gentle, but his words carried the weight of absolute authority. "Humanity gives the Galactic Council 1 standard year to begin implementing the reforms outlined in our proposal. We want to see concrete progress toward ending slavery, stopping planetary harvesting, and establishing universal rights for all intelligent species. And if we refuse? Then humanity will ensure these changes occur regardless of the Council's cooperation." The silence in the chamber was complete. Every alien leader understood the implications. Humanity had the military power to enforce their demands. They had the intelligence networks to monitor compliance. They had the moral conviction to act on their threats. But they also had something else: the support of billions of oppressed beings throughout the galaxy who were learning the truth about their rulers for the first time. The human ultimatum was not just a threat from one species to another. It was a call for revolution that was already spreading across the stars. As Yoon packed his briefcase and prepared to leave, he delivered one final message. "We hope the galactic community will choose reform over conflict. But humanity will not allow the current system of exploitation to continue. The call to war has sounded, but it does not have to end in violence. The choice is yours." The galaxy had never seen chaos like this before. Within days of humanity's ultimatum, 3 distinct groups formed among the alien civilizations. Some species embraced the human demands for reform, inspired by the evidence of galactic corruption. Others rallied around the existing power structure, viewing human interference as an existential threat. A third group desperately sought middle ground, hoping to avoid the war that seemed increasingly inevitable. Admiral Lim Dong-hyun stood on the command deck of humanity's newest military station, hidden deep within the asteroid belt of the Sol system. What alien intelligence had assumed were simple mining operations had actually been the largest military construction project in galactic history. The station was enormous, larger than most alien space cities. Its factories produced warships at rates that would have been impossible for any other species. Automated systems worked around the clock, building vessels designed according to principles that alien military doctrine had never considered. "Status report," Admiral Lim requested from his operations chief. "Sir, Shipyard 7 has completed another squadron of destroyers. Yards 12 through 15 have finished the new battleships. Construction time is ahead of schedule across all facilities." Lim nodded as he studied the tactical displays. Hundreds of new ships were being added to the human fleet every day. Each vessel incorporated lessons learned from decades of studying alien technology and tactics. The human ships looked different from anything else in the galaxy. They had no bright energy fields or glowing weapons. Their hulls were dark and angular, designed to absorb sensor beams rather than reflect them. They moved silently through space, appearing on alien detection systems only when they chose to be seen. But their most important feature was their adaptability. Unlike alien warships that were built for specific roles, human vessels could reconfigure themselves for different missions. A ship designed for exploration could transform into a heavy combat unit within hours. A transport could become a mobile weapons platform. A simple patrol craft could deploy enough firepower to destroy a space station. Colonel Hong Wei-jin led the most dangerous missions in human military service. Her teams conducted deep reconnaissance behind alien lines, mapping every major installation in the galaxy. Human stealth technology had proven superior to alien sensors, allowing her scouts to operate undetected, even in heavily defended systems. Target confirmed, she reported during her latest mission. The Thorian naval base at Kepler 442 has 300 warships in dock for maintenance. Their defensive grid shows the same vulnerabilities we identified in our simulations. Her teams had infiltrated every major military installation in galactic space. They knew which bases were understaffed, which weapon systems had design flaws, and which commanders could be counted on to make tactical errors under pressure. The intelligence they gathered painted a picture of galactic military forces that were powerful, but poorly coordinated. Each species maintained its own fleet with its own tactics and technology. They rarely trained together and had never faced a unified enemy. Most importantly, their logistics systems were incredibly vulnerable. Alien civilizations had grown comfortable with long supply lines and centralized production facilities. They assumed their advanced technology made them safe from attack. They had never faced an enemy capable of striking anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Dr. Nam So-young completed her analysis of alien psychological profiles from her laboratory on Earth. Her work was considered one of humanity's most important strategic assets. She had spent years studying how different alien species thought, what motivated them, and how they reacted under stress. "The Korthul will fight to the death," she reported to Admiral Lim during a secure conference call. "Their culture values strength above everything else. They would rather die than surrender to species they consider inferior." "What about the Velthari?" Admiral Lim asked. "They are logical beings who make decisions based on mathematical calculations. If we can demonstrate that resistance is futile, they will surrender quickly to minimize casualties." Her reports covered every major species in the galaxy. Some could be frightened into submission. Others would need to be defeated completely. A few might be converted into allies through careful psychological manipulation. But her most disturbing discovery was how alien leadership had become disconnected from their own populations. The ruling classes lived in luxury while their people suffered under oppressive systems. Many species were already on the verge of internal revolution. Human intervention might simply accelerate inevitable changes. The human military doctrine that emerged from this intelligence was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Instead of massive fleet battles, humans planned to fight a war of precision strikes designed to cripple enemy capabilities while minimizing casualties. They would target supply lines rather than population centers. They would disable command structures rather than destroying entire cities. They would turn alien populations against their own leaders by revealing the truth about galactic corruption. Most frightening to alien intelligence analysts were the human contingency plans. Intercepted communications revealed preparations for scenarios that went far beyond simple military conquest. Humanity had developed techniques for modifying alien biology to make aggressive species more peaceful. They had plans for terraforming alien worlds to support human-friendly ecosystems. They possessed technology for what their documents called civilization rehabilitation programs. The implications were staggering. Humans weren't just preparing to defeat the galaxy militarily. They were planning to remake galactic civilization according to their own moral vision. As the deadline for humanity's ultimatum approached, desperate diplomatic efforts poured into human space. Some species offered tribute in hopes of avoiding conflict. Others proposed alliances, promising to support human reforms in exchange for protection from more aggressive neighbors. The Zephyrian Collective, a peaceful trading civilization, sent a delegation offering to serve as intermediaries between humanity and the more militant species. The Aquatic Alliance promised to immediately free all slaves in their territory if humans would spare their underwater cities from attack. A few species even offered complete surrender. The crystalline hegemony, whose homeworlds were particularly vulnerable to kinetic weapons, announced they would accept human occupation rather than fight a war they could not win. But the most desperate offers came from individual alien leaders trying to save themselves. They provided intelligence about their own military forces, offered to sabotage their allies' defenses, and promised to betray their own species in exchange for personal safety. Kang De-ho, now serving as humanity's chief diplomat, received all these offers with polite interest but made no commitments. "We appreciate your willingness to embrace reform," he told each delegation. "However, humanity requires actions, not just promises. When we see concrete progress toward ending the abuses we have documented, we will be happy to discuss further cooperation." 3 days before the ultimatum expired, every human diplomat throughout the galaxy simultaneously departed for Earth. The message was clear. Negotiation time had ended. The recall of human diplomats triggered panic on dozens of worlds. Alien governments that had been debating whether to accept human demands suddenly realized they were out of time. Some began hasty implementations of reform programs. Others accelerated their military preparations. High Arbiter Velthar made one final attempt to prevent war. He broadcast a message to Earth offering partial reforms and gradual changes to galactic society. "Surely," he pleaded, "we can find a compromise that satisfies both our needs." The human response was delivered by Admiral Lim Dong-hyun in a broadcast that reached every inhabited world in the galaxy. "The time for compromise ended when your civilizations chose to build their prosperity on the suffering of others," he said. "Humanity offered you a choice between justice and conflict. Tomorrow we will discover which path you have chosen." As the final hours before the deadline ticked away, human fleets moved silently through space toward positions that had been planned for decades. Each ship carried crews who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Each captain possessed detailed intelligence about their targets and precise instructions about how to minimize casualties while achieving strategic objectives. The galaxy held its breath, knowing that when the deadline passed, nothing would ever be the same again. In the asteroid belt of the Sol system, Admiral Lim watched his tactical displays as thousands of human ships took their positions. Each vessel represented years of preparation, decades of planning, and humanity's absolute commitment to remaking galactic civilization according to their moral vision. "All units report ready," his operations chief announced. Admiral Lim nodded, grimly. "Then let's show the galaxy what happens when you build paradise on the bones of the innocent." The largest military fleet in galactic history assembled at the edge of the Sol system. Over 3,000 warships from 47 different species formed a wall of metal and energy that stretched across millions of kilometers. Their combined firepower could have burned entire sectors of space to ash. Admiral Kesevar commanded the vanguard, seeking to restore his honor after his humiliating defeat months earlier. His new flagship was the most powerful vessel the Korthul Empire had ever built, armed with weapons that could crack moons and shields that could withstand stellar flares. "This time will be different," he told his officers as they prepared for battle. "We understand their tactics now. We are ready for their kinetic weapons." High Arbiter Velthar watched from his command ship, the massive crystal vessel Eternal Authority. The ship was a work of art as much as a weapon of war, its transparent hull refracting starlight into beautiful patterns. But today, beauty was less important than victory. "Signal all ships," Velthar commanded. "We advance in formation. The humans will see that their ultimatum was meaningless against the combined might of galactic civilization." As the alien fleet moved deeper into the Sol system, they expected to encounter massive defense stations and swarms of human warships. Instead, they found something that chilled them more than any battle could. Silence. The inner system appeared, almost defenseless. A few small monitoring stations broadcast the same message on all frequencies. "Final warning. Withdraw immediately and implement the mandated reforms, or face the full consequences of your actions." "Where are their ships?" Kesevar muttered as his sensors swept the empty space around Earth. "Where are their defenses?" The answer came from Fleet Admiral Oh Seung-jae, speaking from a command center hidden deep within the asteroid belt. Her voice reached every ship in the alien fleet simultaneously. "Gentlemen and ladies of the galactic forces," she said with calm politeness, "you have chosen conflict over justice. Humanity regrets this decision, but we are prepared to accept its consequences." What happened next shattered every assumption about warfare that alien civilizations had developed over millions of years. The asteroid belt erupted into activity as structures that had appeared to be simple mining operations revealed their true nature. Massive magnetic accelerators extended from hidden installations. Solar collection arrays that had seemed designed for energy production focused their beams into coherent weapons. Processing facilities that were supposed to refine metals instead launched swarms of autonomous combat units. But the most shocking revelation was the scale of human industrial capacity. For 50 years, humanity had been converting every asteroid, moon, and orbital platform in their system into components of a vast military machine. They had not built a few large weapons. They had turned their entire star system into a weapon. The alien fleet found itself surrounded not by ships but by space itself. Every piece of matter in the Sol system had been weaponized. Every energy source had been converted into an instrument of war. The first wave of human attacks came from directions the aliens had never considered. Metallic projectiles launched from Jupiter's moons struck the rear of their formation. Energy beams fired from Mars orbital stations cut through their flanks. Clouds of microscopic robots released from Venus manufacturing facilities began dismantling alien ships at the molecular level. "Impossible!" Kesevar shouted as his flagship shook under impacts from weapons he could not even identify. "How can an entire star system be a weapon?" His tactical officer was working frantically at his controls. "Admiral, we're being attacked. From everywhere at once. The humans have turned their whole solar system into a military installation." The Korthul shields that had been designed to resist energy weapons proved useless against attacks that came from every possible angle simultaneously. Their armor could stop most projectiles, but not when those projectiles were backed by the industrial output of an entire civilization. But the physical assault was only the beginning of humanity's attack. Cyber warfare specialist Bei Minji activated programs that had been dormant in alien systems for decades. Every piece of technology that had been touched by human traders, diplomats, or cultural exchanges suddenly turned against its owners. Communication systems began broadcasting human propaganda instead of tactical orders. Navigation computers started plotting courses toward Earth instead of away from it. Life support systems demanded human authorization codes before they would continue functioning. The alien fleets discovered that their own technology was working against them. Weapon systems refused to fire. Engines shut down without warning. Even simple tools like eating utensils stopped working unless their users agreed to watch human educational videos about galactic reform. "They've been preparing for this for decades," realized Captain Zixtal as his ship's computers refused to obey his commands. Every trade good, every cultural exchange, every diplomatic gift, it was all part of their plan: information warfare. Director Ryu Hyun-woo began the psychological phase of the attack. Broadcasting systems throughout the galaxy carried detailed messages to alien civilian populations. "People of the galaxy," Ryu's voice reached billions of beings on thousands of worlds. "Your leaders have chosen war rather than justice. But this war is not against you, it is for you. We fight to free you from systems that have oppressed you for centuries." The broadcasts included evidence of crimes committed by each species' leadership. Citizens learned about slave operations their governments had denied. Workers discovered that resources they had thought were being used for public benefit were actually funding private luxuries for their rulers. Most effective were the personal messages. Human intelligence had identified individual aliens who had suffered under the current system. The broadcasts included their names, their stories, and detailed evidence of how their leaders had failed them. On world after world, populations rose in revolt against governments that had dragged them into a war they did not want to fight. Within 6 hours of the battle's beginning, the alien fleet was in full retreat. Not because they had been defeated in combat, though many ships were damaged or destroyed, but because their own civilizations were collapsing behind them. The Thorian Confederacy dissolved when its member worlds learned about secret deals their leaders had made with slave traders. The insectoid collective split apart when worker castes discovered they had been deliberately poisoned to keep them obedient. The Crystal Federation shattered when its citizens realized their beautiful cities were built with materials stripped from inhabited worlds. High Arbiter Velthar's flagship drifted powerless in space, its crystal hull cracked by weapons it had never been designed to resist. His crew was in open rebellion, demanding that he surrender immediately to prevent further destruction. "How?" he asked in a voice filled with despair. "How did they accomplish this?" The answer came from Kang De-ho, whose image appeared on every functioning screen in the alien fleet. "We studied you," he said simply. "For 50 years we watched and learned. We saw how your civilizations worked, how your people thought, and how your leaders had failed them. We prepared for this moment because we knew it would eventually come." "You cannot reshape the galaxy according to your vision," Velthar protested weakly. "We are not reshaping anything," De-ho replied. "We are simply removing the barriers that prevented natural change. Your people are choosing their own futures now that they know the truth about their past. The war ended not with humanity's conquest of the galaxy, but with its transformation. Species after species overthrew corrupt governments and requested human assistance in building new societies. The few remaining holdout civilizations found themselves isolated and surrounded by former allies who now embraced human ideals. 1 year after the ultimatum expired, Ambassador Kang De-ho stood once again in the crystal chamber of Nexus Prime. But the chamber had changed, just as the galaxy had changed. The seats were now occupied by representatives chosen by their people, rather than appointed by hereditary rulers. The laws being debated protected the rights of all intelligent species rather than the privileges of the powerful. The very purpose of galactic civilization had been transformed from exploitation to cooperation. "The galaxy has learned an important lesson," De-ho told the reformed assembly. "Justice delayed is not justice denied, merely justice postponed. Humanity is pleased that wisdom ultimately prevailed over force." As he spoke, reports arrived of humanity's newest project. Massive construction efforts at the galactic core were building what appeared to be infrastructure for intergalactic travel. The message was clear. Having reformed one galaxy according to their moral vision, humanity was preparing to carry that message to the stars beyond. Admiral Oh Sung-jae watched the construction from her command ship, now serving as a peacekeeper, ensuring the stability of the new galactic order. "What's our next destination, Admiral?" her operations officer asked. Oh smiled as she studied the star charts showing nearby galaxies. "Wherever justice is needed," she replied. "Wherever people suffer under systems that treat them as less than they deserve to be." The galaxy had tested humanity and found them wanting in nothing but patience. Now humanity would test the universe itself, carrying their vision of justice from star